Why are so few concerned with the obvious slide into tyranny?
Well,
I think more people are concerned that are letting on. I think that's one thing. I mentioned last week that I overheard three liberal women talking about what they were seeing in the park. And I was heartened by their observations and by knowing that other people were seeing things. And, it's hard to calibrate how much what we're hearing, what that means about how many other people are out there thinking some of the thoughts that we're thinking. But we hear from a lot of people who are just grateful for the conversation about the pointing out of some of the inconsistencies and the tyranny.
I'm going to go slightly more mechanistic.
Yeah.
And I'm going to borrow what I think is Rahm Emanuel's famous, unfortunate gaffe, never let a good crisis go to waste. Maybe that's not even Rahm Emanuel, but
I don't remember.
In any case, I think there's a cognitive defect that people have. If you're not used to thinking of many dimensional complex systems kinds of problems, then you may have commitments that are good ones, but they're too strong, right? So the idea that there's a conflict between, let's say, public health and private health, and that in order for the public health to be well served, one has to accept coercion, let's say, in the private health realm, right? Mm-hmm. So you may have to take a vaccine in order to drive a pathogen into extinction or to get it controlled for the good of everybody. And if everybody treats their own health individually, we don't reach a number that's useful and people will die, right?
Right.
Okay. So once you say, well, the good people are the ones that are willing to modify their own behavior in favor of the game theoretic of beating the free rider problem. Okay. But now if you say, well, that's just simply true. The good people are the people who don't cause a free rider problem by prioritizing their own health over the public health. All right. Now you've just set up a mechanism whereby you can be gamed. If somebody recognizes that you have that as a sacred value, then they may hand you something in the guise of this is what the good people will do in order to serve the public health that may have nothing to do with the public health.
I mean, and this is an exact match for what I've said repeatedly on here, that, you say, wow, this is a terrible thing. Person A says, this is a terrible thing. Person B says, it sure is. It's a really terrible thing. Person A says, therefore, the solution is X. Person B says, no, it's a terrible thing, but I don't think your solution is going to do it. Person A says, if you don't believe in solution X, then you don't believe this is a terrible thing. So it's exactly that same setup. And,
same damn thing.
Synonymizing recognition of big problem with solution can only be one thing is the way that it is gamed. And that it's a tyrannical move. It is quite literally a tyrannical move. And it is one of the mechanisms of tyranny.
Yeah. People who oppose X are free riders. And it's like some of them are, but it is certainly not inherent to that category. And in fact, that category is multivariate. And so in some sense, I think in part, people are not as moved by the evident advance of tyrannical coercion because it has been tightly bound to things that cause them not to be able to see it for what it is, right?
Yes.
And
that's right.
When they do see it, it's liable to be too late.
Yeah. It's a societal level situational blindness. It's like it's the gorilla on the basketball court, but done at population level.
Right. And, the gorilla is invisible on the basketball court for a good reason, right? In that case, it seems like, some deadly thing could be hiding in plain sight. But the point is, if you were aware of everything that could hide some deadly thing, you'd never get anything done because you're constantly checking under.
Yeah, the problem, you don't see the forest for the trees if you see all the gorillas on every basketball court.
Right. And so, it's a trade-off that on the average day pays handsomely and occasionally causes you to miss something really important. And some entity, some emergent property has figured out how to exploit this to get people to act against their own interests while thinking that they are doing
Right.
good.
And, here comes the totally expected straw man argument. You don't think gorillas are bad, right? Like, I said I want to recognize the gorillas, but I can't recognize all the gorillas without failing to see bigger themes. Then you don't believe in gorillas. Yeah, it's a complete failure to think in terms of trade-offs. Actually,
it's a complete failure not to think in terms of trade-offs, you mean?
It's a complete failure to think in terms of trade-offs.
It's a failure to think. Oh, okay. Got it. Sorry.
Yeah.
I totally
and gorillas.
missed a comma.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't think gorillas are bad.
Any of them ever? What are you, some kind of extremist?
Mostly not. I mostly think gorillas are pretty innocent.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's your funeral, I guess.